This is Gregory T. Roberts. Welcome to Torn to Two News and more for this lovely day of March 19th. The weather is 46 wonderful degrees, and we have a lot to talk in with. Um, I've known him for years. I've known him for years. We've covered politics for years. We've covered a lot of events for years. And I'm so happy to have these individuals. I'm going to get them on right away. The lovely, the charming, the wonderful, in charge of the air, Miss Karen Bowie. How are you doing? Karen Bowie Jenkins. Let me make sure I get that right.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good.
Thank
Just
you.
coming back
Thank
from a wonderful vacation. Doing good.
I want to thank you for being here today. Let me get Mr. Everything on.
Everything.
Mr. He's Mr. Everything. Me and him have been covering politics for years. No, for years. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, we got some problems. All right, how you doing, John?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How you guys doing? And you could have said
Good.
you could have said about Karen Bowie Jenkins. You could have just said ageless, timeless. She refuses to age. She just refuses to age.
That's right. You can keep adding on, but we only have an hour to do the show, so.
I just love you guys. Thank you.
We love you too. Melvin Burns, Pastor Melvin Burns, will be joining us shortly. We're working on him. Unfortunately, David couldn't be here. He's in a meeting, but we have a lot to do. So we got to break this glass and get rid of the smoke and get right into truth. All right. So keep going with the show. All right. Let's talk about these hate attacks and these hate crimes that are going on right now in this country. And yesterday, a couple of days ago, a station that I won't mention blamed these hate crimes on African Americans. And I just about lost it. Guys, what do you think is going on with these hate crimes, especially towards Asians?
Well, I think, we all know that because of the rhetoric that was coming from the previous administration, calling, the virus the Chinese virus and promoting all of this hate, it's only a matter of time. It's like sticking a match to some wood. It's gonna ignite. And my husband and I were just talking about that and how frustrating it is to see all this racial tension. Um, and now it's like moving from different ethnicities to other ethnicities, and the outrage, and understandably so. I mean, no race should have to endure it. But all of a sudden, and I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to get some backlash, but these are the things that we've been screaming about for eons.
Mm-hmm.
With the violence against Black men and Black women and children, and it's I believe if all these groups would come together, there are more of us than them. You've got the yellow, the brown, the Black, we've got all of these different nationalities. And if we could come together as one, I think we could eradicate a lot of the nonsense that's going on. But yeah, it's a horrible thing, and for them to say, well, he was just having a bad day.
Oh, we need to talk about that too. John, you're shaking your head, John.
Yeah, I was just shaking my head at the "he was having a bad day" comment.
Why don't you explain to our listeners and viewers? Matter of fact, you can watch the show on our Facebook site, WUVS 103.7 or M106 to get in the conversation. Okay, I'm sorry, John.
Yeah, no, it was just a very troubling comment and unacceptable. There is no way to excuse such a comment, and nor should it be excused. You
Now
don't say.
you're
Go ahead.
referring from the shooting in Atlanta.
Right.
Correct. That's what one of the law, one of those responsible with upholding the law. That was a statement that was made by someone responsible for upholding the law during a press conference, that the shooter had a bad day, and it's just an inappropriate comment to make. And I pretty much echo everything that Karen said. I would like to say that unfortunately, what's happened over these years is, I would like to use an analogy of when you've got a couple of different groups of people, and then you've got one mastermind who does very well at pitting these people against this other group, pitting this group against this other group. And then when you have that going on for decades and decades and decades, in this case, we're talking about hundreds of years, literally, where people have been pit against other people. When you talk about slavery, the slaves, some slaves, the house slaves, were pitted against the field slaves. And so pitting people against other people when they have more in common than not, it's an old psychological strategy that's been used for eons, long before America ever even became America. That's been happening. So I don't know that the coming together, I don't know that we're going to see it in our lifetime the way that it needs to happen. I don't know if I'll be around or if we'll be around when that happens. But of course, just because it doesn't seem to be as realistic right now, that doesn't mean that we should quit trying or that we should give up on trying to come together. It's certainly something that we should be very intentional and passionate about doing.
Right. What is it going to take? Because a lot of people are denying the fact that, again, deny and hide, deny and run, that this racism is going on, that Asian Americans are being attacked because of something that a virus that came, which is unfair to them.
Yeah, I think Greg's it looks like he's frozen. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Karen?
I can.
American, we can still hear you. So, all right. Welcome to the party, Pastor Melvin Burns. And what we're going to do, guys, we're just going to keep going through this. I don't know why we're freezing, but just keep talking, and we'll get through it somehow. Pastor Melvin Burns, what we're talking. Hey, sis from Atlanta, we'll be talking to you next week. What we're talking about is what Asian people are going through, and actually a lot of people. The numbers right now are staggering, and looking at the map of all the places where the reports of violence and the reports, it's just sprinkled all over the map. What do we need to do to change this?
Well, first, good afternoon. It's good to see some of my favorite people gathering in one spot.
Likewise.
Yeah, I caught a few comments before I go on, and I agree with you so much, Karen. There's more of us than them, and there's this, I don't want to call them my majority, there's this group of people that are trying to hang on to things not changing. And my daughter and I were just having this conversation earlier. We have to bear each other's crosses, for Asian Americans who are witnessing what we're dealing with now. We got to sympathize, empathize, and mobilize with them also. And so whatever group, sometimes when we think we're being addressed, we want to ignore the others, but it's the same mindset of there's a group of Americans and we don't like anything else that's different.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that means we gotta accept things that may not be our preference, but they're entitled to the same rights. And so I think Karen summed it up well. I think there's more people that think this way than don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Pastor Burns, and Karen and John, that there are more people, more of us, if we get together, and there are Caucasian people as well that don't want this nonsense happening. But when it comes down to this, when are people going to stand up and say that these jokes are not appropriate on Facebook, or Twitter, or what somebody said about the China flu and all this stuff? When are people going to stand up and say that this is unacceptable?
I think that some people are doing that, and that's
Mhm.
that's kind of what we've all said, and that's how we all think is that it is unacceptable. But I do believe that much of America feels that it's unacceptable, and hence the reason that they voted the way that they did this past November. And so I don't think that it's a majority
Mhm.
of the country that feels, just echoing what's already been said. So we are saying that enough is enough. I don't think that you'll ever have 100% of people acknowledging what's blatantly wrong. That's just not the way that
Mhm.
we are as human beings.
Mhm.
And to make a point, who, if you think about the greatest singer, in my opinion, the greatest female singer ever was Whitney Houston. And you can go to Whitney Houston YouTube videos right now where she just blows the roof off of the building, and it might have 200,000 likes, but you better believe that there are going to be some thumb down
Oh,
because
yeah.
because that's just how we are as people. So people are never going to, the consensus is never going to be 100%, but you keep moving. You keep doing what it is that you need to do, and you do win some people over. Sometimes it takes a little more for others to wake up, if I can
Right.
Matter of fact,
use that
her
terminology.
national anthem happens to be between hers and Marvin Gaye's, like the ones that people really love, especially Whitney Houston. Being a coach and stuff like that, you'd be surprised everywhere that I go. That is the national anthem that they use. So some progress. Karen, you were getting ready to speak.
I was just gonna say, I think we have to address it on all levels of government too. You know, we're dealing with something right here in Muskegon County where
Oh
we have
man.
county commissioners making these racist statements on public forums, and jokes and memes, and um, making it where instead of representing the entire community, he's representing a small portion of his district, which is mostly rural and white. And so we have to start at the top and work down, whether it be at the local level, the state level, or the federal level, and hold our officials accountable. I keep hearing, well, this is their Second Amendment rights or freedom of speech. Well, when you get in those positions of leadership, you don't have the luxury
Right.
of making statements based on your own beliefs. You represent the whole community, not just your portion. So we have to start right here at home. We've got big issues right here in Muskegon that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah. Humor is very subjective. And again, once you decide to do a radio program, be a public figure, run for public office, you got to monitor your humor. You got to monitor your comments. That comes with the territory. You still have the First Amendment, but you know what? Everybody else does too. So if you put something out there, we're going to not like it. We're going to ask you to be recalled. We're going to write letters about it. So that comes with the territory. You give up that in public life.
Absolutely.
Coming from Tanya Roberts Ford, and this is all about becoming brown there. They are afraid. Anybody want to tackle that one? I think she's right. And Tyson said, "Speak up, Karen."
Okay,
So,
Michelle,
go on, girl, speak up.
that's my PR person right there.
All right. So So I think that we, like John said it and Karen said that it becomes a thing where we have to step up. It's been things that we have been accustomed to fighting for years. We've been fighting this for years. Now it seems like if you look at 911 after 9/11, you know, it was tight on different people then. Now,
Yeah, keep losing Greg. I don't think. I think it's on. I think it's on his end
Yeah.
that because the three of us can still
Yeah.
communicate with each other.
Well, one thing with the just to kind of elaborate on what Tanya was asking us about or making a statement about, I think she's absolutely right. You know, as the country is starting to mix races and people are starting to integrate different cultures,
get them.
I think that is part of the problem, that they're becoming fearful that they don't have the majority anymore. And so I think she's absolutely right. This country is becoming more browner,
Yeah.
and they're starting to feel like they're losing their country, which had never belonged to them in the first place. So I think I think she's right. I think she's hit the nail on the head on that one.
You know, for every person that says, if you don't like what happens in America, go back to your own country. There's a Native American or somebody that wants to kick their behind and say, you go back where you belong to.
Right.
Hello.
Yeah, much of America is immigrants.
Right.
The majority of this country are immigrants.
Right. Right.
That's a fact. In other words, they came from somewhere else.
Well, yeah, and I always, you know, when they're talking about the borders, you know, we've got to protect our borders. We can't allow, you know, the Hispanic people in. Well, you know what? I would help lay the first brick if they would go back to the original borders.
Wow. Wow.
Let's go back.
Hello.
Hello. You want to draw some borders? Let's go back to the original borders. And when you're up in Canada somewhere, because, you know, so it's amazing to me that you want to claim something that wasn't rightfully yours in the first place.
Boy, she's speaking good. Pass the plate, somebody. So anyway, listen, people, you do not have the right to, you have your first right amendment.
Yeah, Greg, I think has a bad connection.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting how people scream and cry about their First Amendment, but what Melvin is saying, yeah, okay, First Amendment, and so that means that folks who have a problem with it, you want to silence them.
Right.
Right.
You know, you're speaking on your First Amendment, but yet you want to silence the people who are utilizing their First Amendment. It's so much hypocrisy. It's just really, it's actually, if it weren't so sad, it would be comical.
Right.
And I don't even know that people realize how hypocritical their positions are.
Yeah. You hit it on, again, John, you hit it on the head, how hypocritical things are. It's amazing how this is a gumbo. This country is a gumbo. I mean, we're from all different countries, and all people came on a boat one way or another. But people don't seem to understand or have lost that thought about America being this melting pot or other people coming in. How do we address that? Anybody? And then Tanya said, yeah, I'll go back to Africa when you drop me off on your way back to Europe. Thank you, Tanya Roberts, from Atlanta. Oh, okay. So anyway, you're watching Tornitude News and more now, guys. We've upgraded the show from politics, but news and more, because they're.
Yeah, brother's got a signal that's just not
Not cooperating.
Not today. Not today.
That's not cooperating.
Well, go ahead, John.
No, we were just filling in because you were freezing up. But I was going to say one way though that people can counteract politicians in communities who do not represent the community as they should. One way to counteract that is to vote. And even if you're talking about a commission that has, let's say a commission has 9 people on that commission. Well, if people vote for the other 8 candidates who they are certain will best represent them, the will of the people, then they can counteract that 9th person, because then that 9th person's power is very limited. And then they're more likely, the other 8 people, they're more likely to sanction or do other things that are within their ability when they understand that the people who voted for them have a problem, largely have a problem with that particular disposition. But if we don't vote, and then you got people who are in office who understand that most of the people who are complaining, and I'm not saying that's the case in this particular case that Karen mentioned, but when people feel or know that the majority of the people who are complaining aren't voting, they can care less.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's how.
On behalf of everyone in our community and in healthcare, thank you for doing your part.
We appreciate your doing your part to keep us all safe.
When in public, stay 6 feet away from others.
Wash your hands often for at least 20 seconds with soap and water.
Wear a mask. Together, we are slowing the spread of this virus.
And together, we are saving lives.
On behalf of everyone in our community and in healthcare, thank you for doing your part.
We appreciate your doing your part to keep us all safe.
When in public, stay 6 feet away from others.
Wash your hands often for at least 20 seconds with soap and water.
Wear a mask. Together, we are slowing the spread of this virus.
And together, we are saving lives.
All right, we're back. You know, you get a group like this and you deal with nothing but technical difficulties the first time. So that means that I'm gonna have to have all you guys back, and we have to talk about some more of this stuff.
He froze up again.
And there he goes.
Hey, good timing too.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess
We were
talk about-
talking about rape. We're just gonna keep on going. We're going to talk about voter suppression.
That's where I'm going.
You're in Texas. It's going on in Texas. Tanya, you could talk about Atlanta. John, you could talk about Melvin. What are we going to do about this voter suppression? Over 200 and some odd bills, 45 some odd states trying to block your vote.
Yeah. I was just looking at a report last year around this time. There were 35 supposed bills to suppress voter legislation. I think there's like 500 or something now, in the various states, in like 43 states. And most of this is a direct reaction to the election, as we know. And on the other side, there's also a number of, am I getting feedback? There's a number of bills also being introduced to expand voter. The big ones, again, are voter ID, mail-in voting. And, with all these suppressive acts, the thing that gets me is that hypocrisy we talked about. We want to vote when we want our people to vote.
Right.
I think things like in this day and age, when the president signs a bill and people's checks are showing up like 3 days later, then we have a problem, with mailing in votes, that we think there's a problem with people with voter ID, things that were proven never to happen during the election. It's pretty transparent what this is all about.
Right. It's not voter suppression.
But we can say that it has been proven because only one, the Trump campaign actually won, which was about nothing. 60 cases, including judges that were appointed by him, including the Supreme Court, said, no, this is about nothing. Are you guys amazed how our parents used to say it like this? How many people have went for the okey doke?
No, I'm not amazed. I'm not amazed at all. I think what the courts, first of all, the courts should do what is right by law. There is no law in America that states that what was filed in those lawsuits, in those frivolous lawsuits, there's no law, rightfully so, that states that those things are that an election should be reversed based on those things. There's no law anywhere. And if you read the Declaration of Independence, you know that the founding fathers knew that a day like this would come.
Right.
They knew that a day like this would come, and they did everything they could to make sure that when this day came, that what has played out just the way that, because they knew this day would come if you read it. And so I'm not surprised if they had the foresight to know back then when they wrote the Constitution to know that this day would come, then I'm not surprised that here it is all these years later, it happened. And so the courts did exactly as the courts should have done, and the way the system is set up, and had things gone differently, then I would have been surprised. But I'm not surprised at all with those who fell for the okie doke. Pastor Charles Poole said something to me when I was a kid, and he said, words are strong and minds are weak.
That's powerful.
It
That's
is.
powerful. It's like common sense. I don't know why they call it common, because it's not.
Yes, that's true.
And today we're dealing with one. Okay. You
So
guys
no
are back.
surprises. No surprises for me.
So no surprises for you. How about you, Pastor Brown?
You know, John, you said something, in the past election in the Constitution, every step that was put in the election process to ensure it was fair and not tampered with, the past administration challenged at every step. The whole idea was we want to keep this thing fair, make sure it's not tampered with, and every step they made it seem like democracy was not progressing.
Every step.
Karen, you being a past county clerk, are you amazed that people have a lack of knowledge of the Constitution and how it runs?
Yes, I'm amazed at the fact that it was normally the Republican Party that ensured that the voting integrity was in place.
Yeah.
So these are their parameters, their voting machine. You know what I mean? This is their process that they put in place. So all of a sudden, when it works, because it did work, and as a former county clerk, I was offended by the fact that you were talking.
People, we're still okay. We're back again. Let's try it again.
I was just in the midst of talking about, with the election, there is no way to manipulate those electronic machines. No way at all. And I was, when I first took over the county clerk's office, we were still voting on paper ballots. So we didn't have the automated machine. So I was part of the process of establishing the new voting machine programs. And so I was there from the very onset. So I know exactly how those machines are operated, and that there's no way at all to manipulate them. The ballot process that goes through, you have to send them back off to make sure that the ballots match the voting equipment correctly, the markings. I mean, there's so many tests that we have to do before election day. So it's just, it's insulting. They insulted our own county clerk, Waters, and she did a marvelous job with that election. There is no, are there people that now the cases that I did see where there were people voting twice or voting were Republicans. They were all Republicans. I have yet to hear a case of anybody being charged that was not a Republican or voting for Trump. So the election fallacies seem to be with the Republican Party. It wasn't a problem when Trump won, but all of a sudden there's election irregularities and what have you when the other party becomes in power. So yeah, I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. You see everything, and it's just a matter of being poor losers. I mean, you lost the House, you lost the Senate, you lost the so it just is what it is, and no one's going to ever be overly enthused if their party doesn't win. That's never going to happen. But to undermine democracy is taking it to a whole nother level.
Okay. Just I'm gonna John, I got a question for you. John, with that said, what Karen said, the country, and you said you're not surprised. I'm surprised that a lot of people just don't know the Constitution, that they don't know about the Electoral College. I'm just don't know. John?
Well, look at it this way. Most people, looks like we lost them, but to answer your question, most politicians, not all, but most politicians in much of the world, including America, politics is a professional. It's professionalism. It's something people decide often when they're very young, that politics is what they're going to do, and they commit to doing that. And politicians are typically in some aspect or another involved in politics the majority of their lifetime. So you have what's really considered career politicians. You have people who run for House, and then after that's done, then sometimes they run for Senate, or they decide to run for Senate while they're in the House, or they go back home and then they decide, people who are involved themselves in politics typically do it for a lifetime. Just like a professional skyscraper window washer. It's typically a career, or a dentist, or a doctor, or etc. So in my opinion, politicians being lifelong career politicians, forgot where I was going with that. What was his question? Help me out with his question again. What did he ask me? I'm sorry.
A few distractions today, huh?
Yeah, this intermittent.
I'm sorry, I was typing a message.
This intermittent. He asked me a question about.
Well, while you're thinking about that, while we're talking about lifelong politicians, we haven't talked about what are your guys' thoughts about term limits? We know we have them in Michigan, but they're talking about term limits at the federal level for our Senate and representatives.
I'm all in favor of term limits because I think at some point, I understand the experience, but you should not be able to get in at the age of 25 and you're 99.6 and you're still there and things have changed, but you haven't. I think it's healthy to be able to have more experience brought in, or different viewpoints, or and that's the problem. They get in there, and then if you've got a legislator that's not working in the best interest of the people, you're stuck with him if he keeps getting back into office, like Mitch McConnell, prime example. He's been there forever, and he's still stuck in those Jim Crow era times in frame of mind, and we're not moving forward. So yeah, if we had term limits, and I'm not saying every 2 years or 4 years, maybe there's 6-year term limits.
I'm on the fence about term limits. I'm kind of on the fence about term limits. And, one of the reforms that a guy wrote in the Atlantic, I think it was maybe somewhere around 1997, 98, He wrote an article. I think his name was Anthony King, and he wrote an article titled "Running Scared." And it was about politicians. Don't ask me why I remember that, but he wrote an article, Running Scared. He talked about politicians running scared. He talked about how they are always really running for re-election. And the senator out of Moynihan, who was in the Senate at the time, he said when he first came to the Senate in the 70s, he said most of the lunches were with the other senators, his colleagues. They were talking about policy and stuff like that. He says, but in the 90s, when he was still there, most of the conversation was about re-election. And it was about, he says, the day that they were elected and sworn in, the very next day they're working on being re-elected. And so he talked about some reforms and some things that might help that. So it's not just in America, elections are never ending. And in many countries, elections have a beginning and they have an end.
Right.
In America, it's just constantly going. But to the point, he said reforms could be term limits, but he also said that reforms could be extending the House of Representatives term from 2 years to 4 years.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So there are pros and cons, I think, to both.
Yeah.
But it seems like we got to do something to reform this never-ending election cycle that we have in America. And I remembered what my other point was because people tend to be career politicians, but most people, Greg's question was, he's surprised that people don't understand. They haven't read the Constitution. They haven't read the Declaration of Independence. Well, just like people haven't read on how to wash a skyscraper window. It's not of interest for most people. And I think that what we've seen as it relates to politics over the last, since 2016, we've seen an interest in people who would never have otherwise been interested in politics. Now, a lot of the time they don't have a clue what they're talking about on social media. Said with love and all due respect.
Yeah.
But my point is that typically people just aren't interested in it unless there's an election, unless there's some drama, unless there's something going on that they feel directly pertains to them. Just like they wouldn't read a lawyer's manual or a doctor's oath. What is it called? The oath. I can't think of the name of it right now. Or back to the skyscraper. So I'm not surprised at all that people would not know what the law says, what the Constitution says, what the Declaration of Independence says. And it's up to us, people who, for whatever reason, we don't really have a life and we're just consumed with politics. Melvin and I can get together and talk politics from the beginning to the end of the conversation. Most people just aren't. They just don't follow it like that, and they take sound bites of whatever the media has said, or some fake Russia Facebook post or something, and then they run with it. But they really don't know what's going on. But it's up to us to help people understand in the most simplest, basic terms possible. But I think term limits, there are pros and cons. But it seems like something has to happen with reform. It seems like it seems like something has to happen, but I don't know what that something is.
Yeah, I've almost always been opposed to them because I always felt like people can vote, but and I think you touched on it, John, this idea that we really don't get a chance to sit down and talk about this and say, what can we do to make this process better? I was thinking earlier, people don't, it's either win or lose. And when people ask me about getting into politics, the first things I say is be prepared to lose. You know, I know winning sounds good, you get us, but be prepared to lose. You know, you guys know there's nothing worse than losing an election. That is one of the worst feelings in the world.
Yes.
You know, but people don't know how to lose. You know, we just saw, bad loser. So people don't know how to lose. But, in this, hopefully, we get a little break from the national election. But instead of us thinking, how do we fix the process? Again, we're in this battle about voting rights and all is gearing toward the 2024 election. But I think we all agree there's some things in the process we really got to fix. Whether it's the money involved, the dark money, the hush money, the dark money that's involved, or voting. But the sad part is we really don't get forms where we get people from different ends of the spectrum to say, how can we fix this to where, everybody says we want people to vote and participate, but then we do everything to hinder people from being a part of it. I'm a local government guy, and all this excitement around the 4-year election. And then again, we got county elections. We saw what happened in Muskegon County. We got county elections and city elections and boards and commissions that go unfilled when people have a chance to really affect what's going on in their communities. And hopefully people in Muskegon County are getting an eye-opening experience right now.
Yeah, they're in the process of mailing out absentee voter registrations now. So getting ready for the county and the state elections. Yeah, I just got one.
Really? Well.
and what I meant by never ending election, I meant just when you look at America, there's always an election. There's a big election in America somewhere in some state every year.
True.
Yeah.
In some county, in somewhere, it's never ending.
Yeah.
It's never ending. And I think people get, they get fatigued. I think the average person, even though they could just throw the stuff away that comes in the mailbox, when they see another vote for somebody, oh my God, I can't believe I got more stuff.
Yeah.
I think voter fatigue is real.
Yes.
And I do think, though, that if we could figure out a way to have fewer elections, which I don't know how we would do that, but if we could figure out a way to have fewer elections, which I don't know, maybe that means term limits in one way or the other, increasing the term or making it where after the term is up. I don't know what the solution is, but I just know that voter fatigue has a lot to do with everything that we're talking about.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I kind of followed a little bit of some of the changes they were talking about in Georgia with the some of the changes, some of the laws. Yeah, I think everybody heard the outrageous one about not bringing water to people when they're in line. And when I saw that, I said this can't be true. I'm like, no. So I went, let me go to the site and see what the actual proposal was. Because I'm like, I just said no. Somebody, you see a headline, figure, somebody's exaggerating it. And I'm looking at the actual legislation. They call it an illegal enticement to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about those people in line 4 and 5 hours in Georgia and Louisiana and Texas passing out because nobody can bring them water, nobody can bring food. You can't hold somebody's place in line. Just
crazy stuff. We know how to get a little red wagon, put some water and ice in there. We'll be fine.
Well,
we know how to
listen.
all
that is going to do all those things. And let's back up a second. When it comes to the laws and the voting rights, et cetera, that each state has, that was determined by the state legislators. It's interesting to see people sue when they're the ones that made the laws in those particular states. It really sounds like foolish hypocrisy. But all that's going to do is, I think, is provide even more of an incentive for those people to vote, the people that they're trying to disenfranchise. And I think in some states, I don't know if you guys can hear me or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in some states, people are like, oh, that's what you want to do? Okay, we got something for you. all they're doing is I think pushing people to be more a part of the political process in America by these tricks.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't even be having a lot of this conversation, I don't think, if that brother named Barack Obama hadn't been elected.
Yeah.
It's his fault.
Yeah. Stirred up a hornet's nest.
Yes.
Well, that's where and vote how you vote. I don't care if you are Republican or Democrat. It's never mattered to me and Melvin and Karen. I know you guys feel the same way. You vote whatever you believe to be the right thing.
Absolutely.
And vote for the candidate that you believe to be the best candidate, in my opinion, regardless of their party affiliation. I will say, though, in addition to that, that had it not been for Barack Obama, there wouldn't be a Tea Party. Now, I'm not saying that he's directly like, okay, it's your fault, man. I'm not saying that.
There's a reaction.
But having that brown tan suit wearing man in the White House, they crucified him over that tan suit, but I digress. Really created a problem for people. And like Tanya said earlier, and like Karen said earlier, people said, whoa, wait a sec. Wait, what just happened in November of 2017? What? And I think that's when the Tea Party was able to come in and what was that, the midterms that they after he had been in office for 2 years, and a lot of what we're seeing is a direct result of Barack Obama having been elected president in the United States. And for a lot of people, that said to them, oh my God, this last bastion of power is about to be eroded for us.
Yeah.
And it's problematic. And so the guy who ran in 2016 with the help of Russia and some other folks, he was able to take advantage of that sentiment.
Yeah.
He didn't create the sentiment. He was just able to take advantage of the sentiment.
And then we have Kamala Harris, following up behind Obama. So yeah, it's rocking a lot of people's worlds, and they just can't seem to get past it.
They didn't see that coming.
No, they didn't see that part coming. And Biden, they look at Biden as just another extension of Obama. So,
yeah.
Hey, before we run out of time, Karen, I saw you were traveling through Facebook, and when we're talking about voting, I know that you stopped at your family's monument. Why don't you tell people that story? It's right along with what we're talking about, people voting.
Yeah, we got a chance to see. My uncle was Vernon Dahmer. They say Damon down there, or Dahmer. We think Jeffrey might be a distant relative, but anyway, we didn't come to dinner that day. But anyway, my uncle was a businessman in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, who owned a store and was pretty successful. But he became a civil rights activist along with Medgar Evers and Martin Luther King. He housed them, and it was back when they were doing the poll tax. So he began paying the poll tax for blacks to vote, and he was always getting threatening letters in regards to trying to suppress that vote back then. And he was really instrumental in making sure that the civil rights of those in that era were protected, and worked really hard for it. He also helped champion some of the wrongful arrest type cases. There was a young man that was arrested that was trying to go to University of Southern Mississippi, and they put him in prison, and he worked on that case, and he finally got him out. Some murders that had gone down through the ages that he worked on that were Klan related. So long story short, I was 4 and a half, 5, down in Hattiesburg, attending my great grandmother's funeral when they firebombed his house and the store. It was J. Edgar Hoover, I think, was in office at the time. And they found out that he and the FBI and the Grand Wizard of the Klan had collaborated, and they attacked him that night. And my aunt and my cousin, she was little, were able to escape out the back. And my Uncle Vernon, they said, was shooting out the front door, and they finally decided just to firebomb. They were shooting too, so it was a shootout. But they firebombed the store, and he ultimately succumbed to he was totally smoke inhalation. It wasn't so much burned, but it was a smoke inhalation that killed him. And so I think it was in 1998, I can't remember the exact date, but they finally rearrested. They had a trial. Let me backtrack. They had a trial, but of course, all white jury, they were acquitted. Nothing happened to them. Well, they reopened the case, and there was only 2 defendants that were still alive, Sam Bowers being one of them. And so they retried him. He ended up going to prison and dying in prison. Both of them did. So recently, last year, they dedicated the courthouse to him, the same place that he fought to for the right to vote. And they erected this amazing statue, and they also dedicated a park and a stretch of the highway. And so I was supposed to go down last year, but COVID hit for the unveiling. And so we just got a chance to go down there and see. And his son is still alive. 2 of his sons are still alive. And so we got a chance to visit with them. So I got pictures with them and Mom. So it was incredible. And we were taking pictures, and people were stopping and asking us questions. And, were we familiar with the story? And I'm like, yeah, that's my uncle. So it was, I cried thinking about, everything that happened. I remember the chaos. I was too little to know what was going on. I just remember the chaos. And so it was just a wonderful opportunity, and a wonderful opportunity for my mom to see her, the legacy of our family.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for telling that, Karen. And again, we just came out of Black History Month. We're in Women's History Month, and there's still worlds to conquer out there. When we say at election time, what the prices our parents and great grandparents and relatives paid, but I'm impressed. But some people are tired of seeing the first Black person as the first woman and I'm never gonna get tired of it. And when I saw you down there, and I love hearing the story. You've shared it a few times, but it was worth it. It was he paid a price. And your family holding public office as a part of those fruits of the work you put forth. So I think it's important for our listeners to hear that and hear your family story. And it's those things, they still matter. They still
Absolutely.
matter.
Can you guys hear me?
A little bit.
A little bit.
There you go. That's better.
Welcome to the benediction.
Oh my gosh, it's been amazing. But I want to have you guys back, if that's okay. Apologize to you guys. Just technical difficulties happen. This conversation is way too important for us to let an ether court mess us up. I'm not gonna go down like that. So, but why don't we end this way? What can we do this week as individuals to make this place better? And then we're gonna go out, and I'm gonna have you guys back on the show. Karen?
Well, I think we can help educate. You may come across someone, and instead of putting that barrier up and immediately be in the fight position, just kind of open your mind and talk to someone that you may not ever talk to before, or educate. And don't be so argumentative. Now I'm preaching to myself too. Not to be so argumentative, and listen. We can learn a lot from listening from each other. So I'm going to try to do a little bit more of that, just the sharing and getting other people's opinions, and not being judgmental, just listening. So
How about you, John? JC?
I would echo what Karen has said. I had dinner the other night with a young guy in Grand Rapids, and I posed a question to him. I said, "Are you going to get the vaccine? You're going to take the shot?" And he said, "No, probably not." He said, "What about you?" And I said, "Oh yeah, absolutely. As soon as possible, I'm getting it." There was no arguing. There was no fighting. There was no name calling. There was no "you stupid so-and-so." There was none of that. There was no anger. So I think that we have to respect the position of others, the disposition of others as it relates to, they may not think or believe the way that we do. And I think that if we treat people still with respect, I think that they're more likely to come around based on how we treat them than based on just what we say and approaching people with an attitude or that type of disposition. That's just what I think.
Pastor Burns.
Well, I'm wearing my shirt. Today I'm celebrating 39 years as a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. I'm going to be celebrating with my line brothers later. I say that to say after 39 years, there's nobody that can get under my skin, make me more frustrated and angry than those guys. I love them to death. They come from all kind of backgrounds, and they listen to me, and sometimes they never listen. I think I realize that not everybody in the world needs my opinion. Not everybody in the world needs to know what I think about every subject. And sometimes I can just listen, let people say what they say and go on, and even disagree and still love people for who they are and whatever their views are. And every day I try to be more conscious of that. I got a 21-year-old that's apparently going to live with me the rest of her life. And we talk about this a lot. I'm not going to let other things and other people and other situations change the person I'm trying to be. And so I try to work on that every day.
Well, I think it's important what all you guys said. Every Friday, I go over to my neighbor's house, and it's 1 against 300. But that's okay, because I'm going to, tell people the truth. Well, the machines are bad and they're made in Venezuela. No, I'm not going to do that. Also, the thing is that I went to Meyer to get my vaccination, and there were 3 African Americans, including me, there. And we have to do some educating. So on my part, what I would like to do is, I don't know what you guys want to check with you guys, with your schedules, to have you guys back next week, hopefully, so we can talk. These issues are too important for us to let some cords bother us. Agree?
Agree.
Agree. Yes, sir.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. For most of you, you've been watching Torn in Two. Some of you don't know what you've been watching. But but I tell you what, we will be back next week. I'm going to try to get all these guys back together so we can continue the conversation of vaccines, this racial, the suppression, everything that is going on is too important. This is Torn in Two. We see you later. Take care, and God bless everyone.